Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to Christi Tasker's Town Hall on Tuesdays at 12. Yes, that is a tongue twister. And I am your host and your next commissioner for District 2, Christi Tasker. And today I want to share with you exactly what I know is going on safety-wise in our community. In terms of when I've spoken with police officers, in terms of, what's going on the building side, what's going on home robberies, home invasions, car theft, beatings, everything that you can possibly imagine is happening right now in our city, unfortunately. So what I wanted to do today is give you some of the things that I have learned, some of the things I've been briefed on, some of the things that I've spoken with officers about, so that we can try to keep ourselves safe until we can have a little bit more leadership in the Miami City Commission, until I can actually get into office so that we can make sure that you are staying safe until then. Okay. So one of the things that I want to share with you, let's just dive right into it. In terms of, what is actually happening in our government as a whole. One of the biggest things that's happening in the city of Miami is, we are hearing, we need housing for our citizens. Well, the reality is we need to create legislation that actually makes it so that our own buildings, the buildings that are built throughout Brickell and downtown, cannot necessarily be used only for Airbnb, because our police officers are telling me that they are going on a lot of calls for Airbnb people. And when it comes to affordable housing, we have basically priced our own citizens out of buildings. So what happens is that leaves buildings vacant, believe it or not. It's like ghost towns, okay? So we're starting to create these ghost towns within the city of Miami that not only disenfranchises citizens, but it's making the average person where they cannot afford housing. And then we go and we say, but we need to build the affordable housing, Christi. No, we don't. We actually just need to make legislation. I'm not saying we don't need to build affordable housing, so I should rewind there. We need to make sure that we are making legislation so that we can have these buildings that are already built have people inside of them. In other words, if we keep building all these massive luxury buildings, there's going to be no workforce, okay? And we are pricing ourselves out. The same people that are in office right now continue to give up our workforce housing in the name of luxury, okay? So in other words, the 1801 building was sold for a luxury property. There were teachers, there were students, there was low-income housing living there on the bay in nice, peaceful area, beautiful lot. That was actually sold to one of the biggest developers in Miami. Why? We should never have allowed that to happen, in my opinion, at least not without a public vote, because that is your public property. That's where a lot of us in Precinct 569 actually went to vote. So those are things that I believe are completely unsafe in general. Why? Because it will make you homeless. It will make all of us homeless before it's all said and done, because when it comes to our seniors, they're basically, there's going to be nobody living here. I mean, are we trying to build a smart city that, only these new people can afford? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it sure looks that way. So when it comes to some of the other things that are happening within our city, there are and I want to share some of the things I'm going to be sharing with you. You're going to see screenshots from Palm Beach. Like, for instance, this is Dorothy Johnson from Palm Beach. Yesterday, she went to an ATM to gather some cash. This is actually happening in Miami as well. Police officers have told me that it's happening here. But when they went to get out the cash, they have people that are, standing guard. What I would say that it is absolutely imperative that if you are going to an ATM, that you have someone watching your back. Make eye contact with the person. turn around and take a photograph of them. Okay. Don't rely upon the ATM machine, and literally look at them in the eye and say, listen, I know what you're trying to do, and it's not going to happen here. Walk away. Don't continue on with your ATM transaction. Number one, if you feel like there's anybody watching you. Danny Rivera says, yes, it's absolutely impossible to find safe, affordable, wheelchair accessible housing. Yes, Danny, I'm very well aware that you have had even issues with your elevator breaking in your building, which should be completely, that's where landlords are not being held accountable to make sure that repairs are made. And then at the same time, the city and the county government want to go in and completely shut down their buildings. And if they decide that they need that land. So it is a twofold situation where we have the county and the city somewhat working simultaneously together. And I will say, even my competitor in the race and the incumbent is actually friends with the same people that are running our county government. She's friends with Eileen Higgins and Daniela Cava-Levine. So you're getting much in the same right now. So for that, all we can do is vote them all out. Okay. And vote in new people who have no connections to each other, who will listen to citizens and do the right thing by citizens and not by their own wallets or their bank accounts. Because we also have robberies occurring. This is from Nextdoor. Joseph S. from Nextdoor posted that there was an armed robbery in Coconut Grove from this man. 911 was contacted. If this continues to happen next to Coco Walk since April. So this is like an ongoing issue. Okay. So I wanted to tell you, when I first moved to Miami, I actually moved to Wynwood, the Wynwood area in Miami. And at that point, that was 2015. One of the first things I noticed was people did not stop at stop signs. And I couldn't figure out, I'm, from a normal like hometown area where, people stop at stop signs. And they said, Christi, no, people cannot stop at stop signs because, this was an area where there was mass shootings that occurred. So let's just put it this way. I've learned a lot. And the reality is when it comes to our city streets, the one thing that I don't do is I actually don't take a purse out with me at all. So that is one of the things, ladies, I know that you want to, show off your handbags, but it's kind of a thing that's just waiting to happen. Listen, longtime Miami residents told me, listen, do not walk around with your handbag like that. You're just asking for, you're asking to be robbed. So I'm not saying that you cannot walk around with a handbag. You can do whatever you want. But right now, what I will tell you is that we have almost 100 human body officers short on our police streets. So it's absolutely impossible for them to come out because of the, whole defund the police thing. Okay. So, we have people that were, inciting, defund the police. This is what we get. So we need to decide, do you really want the police defunded? Because I certainly don't. I think we have actually great officers. We have a great department that if they were operating, under, some different principles, and had a little bit more of, let's just say, an incentive, not only in terms of pay, but in terms of, how of leadership to actually know what to do when and what to prioritize, that would be helpful. But first of all, you have to have the bodies. And Chief Morales has confirmed last week that he is short, I believe it was either 83 or 87 officers still. He pretty much gives, I ask him every time I meet with him is to see an update. So the other thing that has occurred and that I wanted to give you guys some feedback on, I'm going to play this video first, and then I'm going to tell you what Chief Morales said actually happened here.
A break in the
because this is regarding someone actually getting beaten in Coconut Grove while they were walking home.
Case after a man was brutally beaten and robbed in Coconut Grove.
The attack happened last month. The local 10 Nelson Bovic is live outside the jail in West Miami-Dade to tell us about the suspect now in custody.
Janice, Christi, that's right. Miami police arrested a man they say brutally beat another man in Coconut Grove as he was simply walking home from a night out. I do want to take you to his mugshot. You are looking at 45-year-old Marco Antonio Rora. He was arrested yesterday, and police say that not only did he viciously beat the victim, Greg Breidenbach, but also stole his Tiffany & Co. watch and chain, selling that watch for $30. Rora did make an appearance in bond court. Let's get you to that video. He is facing 2 charges. They are strong arm robbery and felony battery. He was given a $17,500 bond. He was ordered to stay away from the victim, and he could be facing additional charges, we're hearing. Now, the crime happened last month on July 8th around 1 in the morning in the area of Florida Avenue and Douglas Road. And according to an arrest form, video captures Rora walking up to Breidenbach and punching him. A witness saw the whole thing go down and identified Rora in a photo lineup about a few days ago. And when police arrived on scene, I want to mention that they found Breidenbach unresponsive with extensive injuries. He did speak to us from his hospital bed after the attack and described those injuries to us. Take a listen.
My cheekbone is completely shattered. My orbital bone is completely cracked in half. My nasal air cavity is fractured. My nasal cavity is separated from from the sinus cavity. This is all cracked.
Just some horrific injuries there. Now, I did speak to Breidenbach on the phone just a few minutes ago. He is telling me that he is recovering slowly but surely. While he is thankful that an arrest is made, he wants to put this whole ordeal behind him. That is the latest here out of West Miami-Dade. Sanella Sabovic, Local 10 News.
So what Chief Morales actually said in a town hall in Coconut Grove, it's my understanding that the gentleman was walking home, and the gentleman that you saw that was arrested, they had evidently lost a family member, and evidently there was some words exchanged, and evidently the gentleman was making fun of the guy who beat him. I don't know that this happened. I mean, evidently some other details came out regarding the case. So it wasn't like, he was just lurking in the bushes waiting for him to pass. Evidently there had been words exchanged. So that's according to Chief Morales. I do not have the full police report on that. But that's what Chief Morales said in public. So I'm assuming that, he's not going to tell us stories in terms of, what actually should be happening. So the other thing, hold on, let me go here. The other thing we have going on is we have package stealing going on. So I want to talk to you a little bit about home robberies in general. Home robberies are up, especially in the Coconut Grove area. So there's a few things that you can do to protect your home, protect you, protect your home. The first is I would recommend that you install a Ring camera or some sort of cameras so that you have, some sort of motion pickup so that we can catch people whenever they are stealing things. And I will tell you, I actually love the fact that people have Ring cameras, even when I'm going out door knocking, campaigning, because, I'm able to leave a message on their Ring camera and they know that I actually came to their house to drop off, any literature, to speak with them directly. So Ring cameras can be a great way to just deter people in general in a lot of cases. But and then other things, believe it or not, are signage, still signage, like at the beginning of your property, just letting them know that they're being filmed. And then making sure that your mail is picked up. So I've spoke with Officer De La Rua, who covers Coconut Grove in the traffic duties, and along with other officers in Coconut Grove. And these are some of the tips that they have for you. So they want to make sure that you are picking up your packages as soon as possible. Don't leave packages out for long periods of time, because that is like saying, I'm not home. Number one, come rob me. I'm not home. There's no one to get these packages in. So, work with your neighbors, pick up packages for each other, even if you, take them to your house, along with taking your mail in. Do not leave mail in your box. Don't let your mailbox like be stuffing and overflowing. Have your mail held. Your mail person can share with you how to have your mail held while you're gone, while you're out of town. And that's if you can't get a neighbor to pick up your mail, or if you don't want your neighbors to see the mail that you have. Make sure that you are taking care of your mail. Trash. Don't leave the same trash outside your home. Believe it or not, this can be a big one. So that if you have a lot of, I'm just saying, like whether it be bottles or what have you, whenever you're leaving trash outside and it remains there, it's kind of like saying, hey, I don't really care about this so much. Or maybe I'm not home to pick it up. So make sure that you are, picking up the things that are in front of your door. Okay. So the other thing that's happening is let me actually go back here one more time. I keep, instead of sharing the next tab here. Okay. So car thief is, just stealing cars is a big one. So when it comes to your cars, okay, so I noticed in the Coconut Grove Town Hall, a lot of people are having their cars broken into in Shenandoah and even Coral Gables. I've seen on Nextdoor where cars are being broken into almost everywhere. Actually, one of the voters in my area actually came to downtown and actually had somebody was in her car when she went out to get back in it. So number one, make sure that you lock your doors. Make sure that your settings, if you have automatic locks, that the automatic lock settings are so that you know for sure that your car is being locked. I would double check it yourself. And then inside the car, please make sure that you are, whenever you have, your car with any kinds of items in it, whenever I'm even out campaigning, I'm just going to tell you what I do is I make sure that I don't leave anything in the car, like no sunglasses, nothing that could possibly tempt a robber. Okay. Because if they want in, they're not only going to, crack a windshield, but I mean, they're mostly looking, the police are telling me they're mostly looking for just unlocked cars, believe it or not. So, they're saying that they will actually just go on to another car if there's no unlocked cars. So that is a big thing. So make sure that you are locking your car doors. Okay. Next, make sure, let's see, that's the ATM. So there actually is an ATM issue. I'm not sure what keeps happening here today. Every time I click a different tab, it wants to like knock me off. Okay. So in Coconut Grove Park, on Coral Way and 17th at the drive-through ATMs, there was evidently cops out and ambulances out, everything roped off, and there was a body covered on the ground. I'm not sure exactly what happened here, but I will tell you, I worked at the bank when I was much younger. When I was actually pregnant with my daughter, I worked at the bank. You need to be very cautious, when going in and, just be cautious and alert when you're inside of a bank. Okay. For some reason, robbers have not discovered that, banks don't really carry that much cash anymore. And that is unless they are supplying, like check cashing places, which mostly have, direct access to cash directly from the cash delivery systems, and the big cash delivery trucks. So just make sure that, the ATM situation is a really big one. And there may be people out there trying to prevent you from utilizing ATMs and cash. For those of you who are not aware, the county has made it a mandatory that businesses do accept cash. And on a global perspective, I know earlier I had up the wrong logo here, had up the wrong logo on the town hall, because I also have a podcast called Patriots Perspective, where I discuss like global politics and what's happening regarding our banking system and the central banking system. So there is a situation, a global movement where Some businesses and some, people would love us to do away with cash and banks. So just be extremely cautious because we are in very difficult times in our country. Inflation is high, and you want to make sure that you do have, protection around you. And then just be alert. So being alert is a really, really big deal. Okay. So just keep in mind, be alert, especially if you're going to an ATM. Don't be in such a hurry. The other thing that is happening in our neighborhoods is neighbors, should be aware of callers pretending to be serving you legal papers. Believe it or not, I had this happen to even me here recently, where someone came to my building, got through my HOA security, knocked on my door, and pretended to be serving me papers. But the difference is they didn't know that I'd already seen them on Ring. So I go out with my camera and I say, "Oh, really? You're trying to serve me papers? Well, please, don't you need a record of service? Don't you want a photograph of me holding the papers?" And they ran. So this is a really, really big deal. So evidently, this Roxana was saying that she was called by North Miami Beach number saying that she needed to be home in 2 hours to be served with papers. I said I wouldn't come home later or tomorrow. He started threatening her with violating Florida statutes by rejecting the serving of papers. Then I said I wasn't rejecting, but was far away and wouldn't make it. Okay, well, that's probably not a good idea to tell them that you're far away from their home when it comes to like telling people that you're not going to be at home. And then she started making, then when I started making a question, he said he was sealed and he had no information to access the call. He was from an 888 number, toll free. So they would reschedule my papers to be served. Then he gave her a case number. The 888 number has no identity and law office, as the law office told her, nor was anyone answering. When she went back to check her name on the Miami-Dade court records, she found out it was all a scam. There's nothing registered against her. He hung up and said that it sounds like a scam. He was aggressive and threatening on the call, so just be really careful. So just note that there are people out there doing things like this. I'm going to go back really quick to when it comes to what we were talking about earlier with even, when we're talking about landlords, because I missed this comment earlier. And this is all on Nextdoor, by the way. I do go through Nextdoor to see what problems people are facing. So if you have problems and you want to publish them on Nextdoor or send them to me, please feel free to go to my website. And that's Christi, CHRISTI, 4 Miami.com. Okay, so this one is from Melissa S. She says, "Good morning, everyone. I would like to know where and why the United States government officials allowing apartment owners to keep going up on rent that's forcing so many people out into the streets since the coronavirus broke out. I think she meant broke out in 2019. Plus, apartment building owners are also allowed to go to Section 8 office staff, so they are allowed to ask for a rent increase at 3 times during a tenant's stay on a property without caring if it's worth the amount of money being paid to each month." Wow. Okay. So that's very interesting, regarding the Section 8. So if anybody has any information on that, please feel free to share it with me. So there are a couple of things that you guys can do that are, fraud you can report. And I want to share with you where to report some of the things. And I know that many of you may have already gone here to report things before. However, I want you to know I will happily follow up on any of your ticket numbers. And I want to explain to you how the ticket system works with 311 Direct. Number one, when you file a 311 Direct notice, your commissioners, that's county and city, both get the 311 Direct information. It goes directly to if it's in their region, if you are in their region, the address is in their region, it goes to them. Okay. So whenever I hear a commissioner out and about saying, "Just follow up with my office and that ticket number," I get so annoyed, like unbelievably annoyed, because I think we have all already followed up with them, right? We've already said there's a problem. We reported it on your system. We uploaded the photos. We did everything. It is then should be in their hands. You should not have to follow up with your commissioner's office. Okay. However, at this very point in time, please do me a favor. When you get your notice that that ticket is enlisted, please also forward it to hello at Christi, the number 4 Miami.com. Also forward it to your commissioners, because I would like to see. Right now, I'm not getting those tickets. Okay. I am just a candidate right now. I have no access to your tickets, because if I did, your problems would be resolved and you would be getting a notice back from possibly even me myself, believe it or not, letting you know, hey, we're on this. My team and I are on this. We want to know what's happening. But not only that, I want to come out and meet with you. That's the difference between me and probably what you have right now, is you will have boots on the ground. I will come, I will meet with you if I have a problem. And I'll also want to know, I'm going to require that whoever takes care of that problem, like let's just say you report broken sidewalks. When I see that that ticket's been closed out, guess what? I want a photo of the broken sidewalks. I want to know that it's resolved. I want to know that it's taken care of. So here are a few of the things that you can report directly on 311. And I say this because it's also about your safety, because anytime there is illegal dumping, sometimes illegal dumping crosses over to sidewalks. Things trip people. Whenever it comes to roadways or traffic signs being down, that is a massive public safety issue in general that should immediately be taken care of. Trees being trimmed, believe it or not, are a huge issue and a safety issue. People have been hit and killed by tree limbs. So that is a really big thing. And of course, we know mosquitoes. I mean, who wants to be bitten by mosquitoes all the time? So whenever we have standing water that could be creating mosquito infestations, please make sure that we are reporting it. So we want to make sure that environmental complaints, because, you know, when things are going into our environment, that's going to be in our drinking water the next thing we know. Damaged green waste carts, you can report the basic things here. Anything going on with the county parks. I noticed the 311 has nothing to do with city parks. They just say county parks. Okay. Bulk waste pickup, animal pickup. Well, technically, the 311 system, even though City of Miami does get this, City of Miami really should have their own 311 system. And that is one of the things I will be advocating for. And with our budget being the billions of dollars that it is, and with technology being a huge part of it, we should have no problem creating a simpler app that our commission should be following up on sooner than later. Because what these things result in, whenever we have major issues, is we have issues with like construction workers, trash debris, and I'm going to explain how one kind of leads to another here.
Developing in Coconut Grove, where a construction worker was
By the way, this happened 2 weeks ago.
killed in a crane collapse today.
Just awful. Other workers were also injured when that crane came crashing down.
And we're now hearing from a Miami City Commissioner about the catastrophe. Local 10's Hatzel Vela is live with this developing story. Hatzel, what can you tell us?
Sonella Lawrence, truly a tragic story to tell here. We're talking about 5 construction workers. One of them has since passed away. Let me give you a sense of what's happening here at the scene. This gives you truly a chance to see what happened, what went down here. This is the actual piece of the crane that they tell us collapsed on itself, a mechanical equipment that's part of a renovation project here ongoing at the hospital. Let's give you some background here in terms of time and what happened. 12:15 is when authorities got the call. We're looking at a 200-foot crane here that had collapsed while carrying a load, landing on workers below. A breakdown of those injured. 5 people injured, 4 taken to area hospitals. In fact, We are at a hospital. So 2 stayed here at Mercy. They're supposed to be in stable condition. 2 others were taken to Ryder Trauma at JMH, where they're in serious but stable condition. And again, unfortunately, we have to report that the 5th patient did not survive. He was pronounced dead here on scene. The area, of course, was immediately evacuated. We're told make sure that everybody was safe. Here's what authorities are telling us will happen now and in the coming days.
At this point, the Miami Police Department is supporting the efforts of the Miami Fire Rescue Department and Building Department, and we're conducting an investigation through the Miami Police Homicide Unit and Crime Scene Investigation Units, together with OSHA and the Miami-Dade Medical Examiner Department, again, to find out exactly what happened during this tragic incident.
We are expected to be here throughout the night and possibly all day tomorrow, safely working with the crane company to remove the damaged crane.
And so back out live, you can see the pictures for yourself. The crane obviously still in place. Some of the things that that gentleman was there talking about was the process of what's going to happen next. We're told that once that crane is being removed from that location that you see it there and these live pictures, part of the hospital will be evacuated. We're talking about several patients, presumably right below the crane. We're working on trying to get more information. Any new information, we'll get it to you. But for now, live from the city of Miami, outside HCA Florida, Mercy Hospital, I'm Hatsabala, Local 10 News.
That's what we know you're on it. Thank you much for that report.
What is the real story of January 6th? Many people have asked that question.
Okay. So one of the major things I'm going to say regarding the crane incident is that things like that a lot of times can be avoided. In terms of, number one, I've noticed that cranes are a massive issue on properties in general. Number one, I've had to call it in even directly next door to my condo building, where you've got a crane that is either overloaded, a crane that is unsafely going over a street and there's no one watching. In other words, there's passersby, walkers, cars driving underneath it. That should never, ever, ever happen. Okay. Report that immediately to 911. That's when you should call 911 whenever there's an issue like that, because there are times that I have reported cranes that could have immediately resulted in some of these incidences where it looks like, listen, if the crane is having a hard time lifting something, that means that they're trying to lift too heavy of a load. Okay. That is most likely what happened with that crane incident, is the crane operator was trying to lift too heavy of a load and it literally collapsed the crane. Okay. So this is not only about the city workers. This is not only about us as citizens, but this is also about the construction workers. And I've tried to plead with construction workers to have them directly. There's a couple of things that they can do. Okay. Let me just explain. If it is a worker themselves, or if you are seeing an incident like this happening, such as the crane incident, what you should be doing is you should be filing a complaint with 2 different departments. One is OSHA. Okay. So I want you to file a complaint with OSHA. You can do a whistleblower complaint. You can do a health complaint, but you can file the complaint with them. And the reason I say to file the complaint with OSHA is because OSHA is actually in Fort Lauderdale. So it's a little bit outside of the jurisdiction of Miami, even though we're in the Fort Lauderdale jurisdiction. You can see down here where it's green. So make sure that you're filing the complaint with OSHA, because that is an OSHA complaint. Notice our officers even mentioned OSHA. Okay. So make sure that you take down these numbers. So our Fort Lauderdale number is 954-424-0242. Again, the number is 954-424-0242. Store that in your phone. I would make a contact with it in your phone. It's OSHA. Okay, so that is OSHA. That stands for Occupational Safety and Health Administration. You want to make sure that you do make any reports like that. And I'm telling you why. Because number one, our building department here does not always have the resources or the knowledge to oversee some of these things. Okay. And it's better to report these things. If you see something, say something, because we don't want tragedies like that to happen. Okay. So let's make sure that we are reporting to OSHA. That would be super helpful. Then the next thing I want you to do is make sure that you're reporting it as a code violation on the city website. So if you just go to miami.gov/services/solve-a-problem, or you can just search in your Google. What I typically do, even myself, because our websites are a little convoluted. There's so much information on them. People often don't know where to go. You can just search miami.gov and then search report a code violation. And this page should come up even in Google for you. So what you want to do is you want to report the code violation. You need the address of the issue and the incident, the time of the incident, the owner's name if applicable, and the description of the problem. So some of the issues that they tell you to report are things such as graffiti, chipping paint, your noise violations. So if you are downtown or in Brickell like we are, you want to make sure that you're utilizing the code violations to report some of the incidents. Along with, even when it's noise, I would also recommend that you also call 911 at the same time. And the reason I say this, the reason I'm telling you to go to multiple systems is because it's going to get things on different public records. So make sure that you are doing that. Let's see, Danny R. I also follow up with 311 complaint with an email to the department in charge of the issue. Okay, yeah, that's a good idea, Danny. Danny, do you get resolutions, or right now are you getting resolutions when you do follow up with the emails to the department in charge of the issue? Maybe you have some insight on that. And then, the other question, is a lot of times citizens don't know the exact department in charge. So it's a little frustrating. That's where, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them or find the department number for you as well. You can just go to any of my social media sites and I'll get to it as quickly as possible, or you can email hello@Christi4Miami.com. You can report. I definitely recommend that you report the code violations with any of the numbers. So for trolley, for code violations in my building, eventually. Okay, good. Yeah. For the trolley, no. For code violations in my building, eventually. Okay. So yeah, definitely make sure that you are reporting, any code violations directly to the city. If they are OSHA violations, report them there. So OSHA is mostly like for larger construction sites and major issues that are going on. So there are different documents that you can go to here if you need to know how to report a violation. After you gather the information during normal business hours, call the department code compliance, which is 305-416-2087. So that is 305-416-2087. If it's out of business hours, you're going to want to call 786-457-0995. So that is 786-457-0995. You can also email the code compliance department at codecompliance@miamigov.com. So, and then also you can follow up with 311. So, it is important that we all take the time to do these things in terms of what's to be done. That's going to be super important in general. I'm trying to blow this up on the screen so that you guys can see the phone numbers and everything, and actually who to call. Yeah, because you want to make sure that you are calling. The other thing that I want you to know is you can no longer anonymously call and expect a code officer, enforcement officer to actually show up. So everything has to be an actual person to report. It cannot be anonymous if you actually want to make sure that they do follow up. Okay, so make sure that that you are reporting that. And if you want them to follow up with you afterwards, they will as well. And if you, like I said, if you have any issues and you're not getting any attention or they're not coming out, please do feel free to email me. Okay, let's see. What else do we have? Did I already give you guys the number for the local OSHA? Yeah, I gave you the number for the local OSHA office. Yes, that's correct. Just making sure that I've gone through everything that I wanted to with you in terms of what's actually going on here. There are a lot of other issues that are happening as well. So in terms of the city, there is also, let me actually take this off. We have obviously the homeless is a huge issue, and the homeless are not necessarily the homeless as we're thinking. As I said earlier, it's because we're making our own citizens homeless. But there are some dangerous homeless people who are most likely on drugs that we just need to be very cautious of in terms of what we actually have, going on, and just be mindful that not every homeless is sane or not on drugs. There are issues where drugs are also being laced with fentanyl, and it's making people just go absolutely bonkers. So it may be they may think they're getting their regular high, and the next thing we know, they've actually consumed fentanyl or other things that we may not be aware of. The other thing that we should be mindful of and looking out for is, especially considering it's Suicide Prevention Month, is suicide. Okay, so our police tell me that we have a lot of suicide that happens here in Miami, especially in those Airbnbs. So that is the reason, it's a simultaneous issue here. Okay, not only do police have to go to the Airbnbs quite a bit, the Airbnbs, landlords are making more in a week than sometimes they do in a month. So why should they allow, like regular 12-month leases that could, keep regular citizens in buildings, whereas they are able to rent out on Airbnb on a by the day, by the week basis. So that would actually stop, believe it or not, a lot of the homelessness. It would actually put a lot of our restaurants back in business, because you can go through Brickell, you can see multiple restaurants that are like pretty much vacant. They look like ghost towns. I mean, I thought it was just me until I met with a business owner from downtown last week. And, he's also confirmed, like this is a very strange thing and very strange times that we're in. And it really goes back to the Airbnbs. Everything tends to go back to those Airbnbs or the short-term rentals as a whole. Listen, I know it's a cool thing to do to move from city to city, but the reality is it will make average workers homeless, and that doesn't help anybody, not even the tourists that come here or the people who want to rent those Airbnbs. So when it comes to legislation, one of the things I would say that you could do within your own HOA, especially if you're an HOA that's mostly owner occupied, is to make sure that you keep your HOA mostly owner occupied and that you have 12-month leases. For instance, my building does not allow allow Airbnbs at all. When we catch people with Airbnbs, I mean, literally, we don't have to allow them in the apartments at all. And then the owner is heavily fined. And so that is one of the reasons I believe that our building has sustained for so long, because it's an older building built in 1969. However, this really is dependent upon the HOA itself. For those of you who know me, you know that I'm not about, big government controlling anything that you or your neighbors want to do. But I do want to say that we have a lot of buildings out there that if you were just to change your HOA bylaws to make it so that you could only have 12-month leases, and then you actually enforce that within your security, you would probably see a huge shift in the way our city operates as a whole. So I'm curious to your thoughts on this. This is the first time I've actually mentioned this like publicly to the citizens of Miami, because I'm very curious to what you think. If you think, if you want to just have complete control of your property, if you want Airbnb guests to basically, you want them to change out and live next to you on a daily basis or a weekly basis, or if you would like to just have regular neighbors and maintain our city. Because as much as I love tourism and I love going, and staying in Airbnbs sometimes myself, like when I go to Paris or Italy, I often stay in Airbnbs. I'm very mindful of the neighborhoods around, and I can see why people would be very annoyed with people kind of coming and going constantly in the apartments next to them. So that is a big one. So I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are, if you see this as a problem, because it is something that I have identified. And I just want you all to know I'm always going to bring things to the table for you as citizens. And that doesn't mean that you have to agree with me. You can start to do your own research, is what I would start asking around, because together we need to be able to make informed decisions about our communities and what we want to do to make sure that we can stop the homelessness. Because, I know Danny Riviera, I followed her stories and I follow her tweets, and I know that she has major issues with her landlord. And, when I'm thinking about all the properties that we are rebuilding and we're allowing, big, massive luxury high rises to come in, I often wonder who is going to actually live in those high rises, who can afford it. If we cannot afford housing, why should we have it? Okay. Because if we allow this to become a ghost town, in other words, where people only come for either a certain time of year, or whether the wealthy can only come in, is that really the community that you want? So I would say that that's something that, everybody should ask themselves. Is that something that you want? Because what I see is our commissioners that are currently in power every single one of them are playing along with this overdevelopment game. They are trying to usher in a C40 city. That means a smart city, using the World Economic Forum. Those are facts. Agenda 21 is real. Agenda 21 is the World Economics Forum agenda, and we have Miami 21. We also have a mayor in leadership that is all about the World Economic Forum. He is the Miami Young Mayor's leader or something of that nature with the World Economic Forum. So I think we should be asking ourselves, between the crypto scandals, using FTX and using our money, what we really want for the future of the city, so that we can make informed decisions together as a community versus allowing the same people in office who are already connected to each other to continue to gain control. So one of the things I would say is, if you did not catch my very first town hall, I would highly recommend that you go back and watch that. So let me show you exactly where to find them, because some people are saying like they're having trouble finding them. So let me actually show you exactly where to find them on YouTube, so that you can find all of the town halls. Let me see any comments. Yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to. What are your thoughts on the recent change in Florida campaign finance reporting laws? Many of these developers are donating huge amounts to elected officials and candidates, and now we won't know up to 3 months. Danny, you know me, I'm all about transparency, like fast and quick. I do not agree with it at all. So I absolutely think that should be absolutely stopped. And let me just say this, for those of you who think that we have two different aisles of the political fence, we have two wings of the same bird flying in the same direction. So we have a choice to interview candidates. One of the things I wish were happening in upcoming town halls. So if you're in charge of a town hall and you're listening to this, what I would advise you is make us all put away our devices, make us all go speak to you with no papers. Okay. Because I'm going to tell you, a lot of people are equipped with talking points from their campaign managers, who are then connected to these developers. They're going to tell you whatever you want to hear. Many times they are not even informed. I mean, the person that's coming in incumbent was not informed the last election. I literally took a photo of her notes She was sitting next to me. Okay. She doesn't know. She didn't even know the actual list or the topics. And maybe she doesn't know in English. She didn't know the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm just saying, these are people who don't really know, and they're taking massive amounts of money from developers, giving them to electeds and candidates. You can look up Alex Diaz de la Portilla from District 1. You can see that every single one of his, like even personal donors, gave $1,000. Are you kidding me? What candidate that's an actual candidate actually gets $1,000 from every single donor? I mean, that's like a joke. Okay. And then they're running massive, huge packs. So I definitely recommend that you follow Danny's work. She is, Danny, can you post your Twitter handle so that I can put it up so that people can see it? Because that's a really big deal. Making sure that people are equipped and follow you on Twitter. As a matter of fact, Danny, if you would like, I would love to have you on a cast to explain to people what this actually means for them as a whole. So I know that we're running up on almost 1 o'clock, and I apologize for this being so long. I really wasn't expecting it. But what I wanted to make sure that you know is you can go to youtube.com /@ Christi, the number 4 Miami, and then /streams. And you can find me there. And find and if you just click live, you can see all of the past town halls that I have done. So you can see the Coconut Grove Town Hall and who's in charge of our big government. Okay, so I want you guys to make sure this actually kind of tells my story from the very beginning. I don't like to repeat things over and over, but I would highly recommend that everybody go back and watch this, because that actually tells who's actually in charge of our government. And then when it comes to, the different town halls, make sure that you do connect on those and watch them whenever possible, because each one has different information. And make sure that you do follow at Miami Seda on Twitter. Make sure that you follow me at Christi, the number 4 Miami on Twitter as well. And I look forward to answering any of your questions. I don't think I see any more questions. I think I've kind of answered them as we've gone along. But feel free to, send me more questions that you may have. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And I'm grateful that you took the time to be here today. If you have questions for next week, if there's a topic that you would like me to cover, you can email me or just comment on any of my social media posts, and we'll try to make sure that we cover that in the next town hall. And make sure that you also follow our Eventbrite. If you want to know all the events that I'm going to be at, please make sure that you follow me on Eventbrite as well. And you can search for just Christi Tasker on Eventbrite. Make sure that you follow Christi Tasker campaigns, and we'll make sure that we post all the town halls and all the events that are coming up. And not only my town halls that I'm doing, the Tuesdays at 12 town halls, but also local in-person town halls. If you would also like to invite me to your HOA to host a personal town hall for you, I'm happy to do that. I've been doing that a lot for a lot of different buildings. So, and I've been in a lot of great meetings with HOA presidents who are very concerned about their HOAs and where they're going to live in the future. So this is a really big deal. It's a much bigger deal than we might realize right now, but I'm thankful that you're here and at least listening and being engaged with your community. And please feel free to go to Christi, the number 4 Miami.com, subscribe, and you'll get all of my email notifications as well. Thank you all, and God bless you. I look forward to seeing you in person very soon. And then I look forward to seeing you next week at Town Hall Tuesdays at 12.